Welcome back students for this UGC lecture series on lasers and their applications under Swayam portal. Today we are going to see something very impactful applications of laser. I have been saying so many types of lasers, but lasers in communication is the one which has made upheaval, which has made the world upside down. That is what it has happened, because if we have a mobile and if we want to talk to somebody in USA or in Hawaii or in Canada or in Australia, all that you need to do is switch on the mobile, press certain number here and there, and then presto, you will see somebody in Australia, and then you press one or two more number, you will see somebody in USA, and the present day Zoom meeting, I can have 50 of them simultaneously communicating to me with their audio and video. Somebody can play music, somebody can do a dance, somebody can give a terrific speech, somebody can give a joke. All of them can reach me simultaneously. I can be seeing hundreds of people simultaneously, each one doing something totally different from each other. All these are possible under the so called 5G communication systems. In this one, it is the lasers and optical fibers which play very vital role. Of course, there are so many technologies involved. Plenty of scientists and technologically smart people have put their efforts and ingenuity into this one. It's a big group work. Thanks to everybody. What I am trying to bring to the focus of our lecture is the vital tool is the laser and the optical fiber. So, we will focus and we will try to see how the whole things have become so important. Now, with this, let me go into the picture. Just by way of introduction, let me say what do you mean by communication? Communication means I want to convey something to somebody. I have some idea, I have certain thoughts, I want to communicate to somebody, tell somebody what I am thinking about, what I am imagining, what I am dreaming. That is all the communication. Ordinarily, I speak, or I show my hands, or I show my eyes, then that is the only possible way I can do communication. This is a simple direct communication, mostly by sound, movements of hands and fingers, movement of eyes. This is the commonest one. But remember, this reach is very small. I can communicate to somebody at a distance of 2 meter, 3 meter, 5 meter. Suppose I want to communicate somebody who is not in the line of contact, not in the direct vision. Somebody is somewhere else. Let us say somebody is beyond this room. I cannot see him, but still I want to do communication, means I have to employ certain technique. This is called the communication techniques. In the olden days, in the very primitive time of civilization, they used to communicate. Even the animal, they have some communication systems. In the early morning, if you are smart enough, if you are good enough to wake up in the morning around 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, at the first stroke of the sun, as the sun breaks up, wakes up, all the birds will come out of the nest and they start talking to each other. You can carefully listen. They will communicate from one to another, saying that I am going towards the north or south, or there is a cat in nearby. They do some communications which I do not understand, nor you will understand, but they do communicate. In the early civilization, human beings communicated usually by drums. Let me give an example. By the drum itself, you can communicate certain well defined messages. forget the very early civilization, go to about 1000 years ago. I gave a very typical example. In Tamil Nadu, around 1000 AD, 1000 approximately, that is a time when Tamil Nadu was supposed to be the golden time, golden period. Rajaraja Cholan was a king. He was the most important Raja. He had a son. He had got only one son. Now, before the son was delivered, how do we communicate? How do the people come to know that our great king, Rajaraja Cholan, was a very famous king? He was loved by the people. If you want, you can see the movie Ponniyin Selvan. The important point now, point of our discussion is, when his wife is ready to deliver a child, whole state would be very keen to know whether the child is a boy or a girl. Boy means the empire will continue for a long time. If it is a girl, there are so many enemies to make use of this opportunity and invade the kingdom. That's all what it happened, what is important at that time. If it is a boy, he will grow up into a very strong man. After the death of the present king Rajarajan, he will have a son who will be the prince, and he will be able to continue and make the kingdom bigger and smarter and greater. This is all the expectation of the people. So, the message whether the child is a boy or girl is very important for everybody. Now, let us imagine how they would have communicated. Imagine that there is a big drum. If the drum, if it says dum, 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 very slow, this perhaps would have coded as the child is a girl. On the other hand, if the drum is da-da-dum, 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 that means there is certain kind of happiness in beating the drum, da-da-dum, da-da-dum, da-da-dum. That means the child is a boy. That means we have got a prince and the kingdom is going to flourish. This communication is a coded message. That, remember, this is a coded message by changing the frequency of the sound wave produced on the drum. Now, how much distance it will go? It will go for half a kilometer. Then somebody in another temple, he will hear this very well. Then he will go at the top of the tower and he will beat the same thing. Then this message will go to another half a kilometer. Like that, they will have a message communicating drum at the top of a temple. Remember, this is there is a message and there is a messenger and there is a communication technique and there is a communication tools or places. All this we have followed throughout from Rajaraja Cholan period to up to now. For example, what is happening is, suppose I have a message to convey to my son who is in Washington. I take mobile, I speak, what I speak is audio wave. This wave is received by a mic here. This mic will receive audio sound, which will convert into electric signal. This electrical signal will be modulated using some other technique. So, what comes out of my mobile is a modulated microwave. This microwave, modulated microwave, is easily picked up by the tower. That tower, which you can see when you drive a car or when you walk or any there are so many towers, all of them will be very tall with a big disc at the top and with so many wires and here and there. What is important is that tower will pick up my modulated voice. That particular modulated voice will be sent up to the satellite after enormous amplification in signal strength. Then in the satellite, that will be received. That communication between one satellite to another satellite is possible using laser technique. about which we will come back later. Then that will go to another satellite. From that satellite it will go to another satellite. This will be transmitted one after another. Eventually it will go to a satellite which will be very close to USA. That a tower in the USA Washington will pick up a signal from that satellite, then it will be replayed. That will be amplified, it will be sent to the antenna in the house of my son. That signal will be, when it falls on the antenna, it will be an electromagnetic signal. When this electromagnetic signal is caught up by a modem, there will be a very big boost in the intensity, that is amplification will take place. Then that message will be fed up into another wave. There will be a filter which will remove the messenger and not the message. It will kick out the messenger and the message alone will reach the mobile of my son, who will receive my signals. This is all what is done. Now, for all this, perhaps you should have heard about it. This kind of communication was done in different fashion during the time of Graham Bell. There was no laser. The message was not done by electromagnetic wave. It was done by this kind of communication, modulated communication on electrical signal. I can go back one step back. Before Graham Bell, who invented the telephone, before that, communication was done by pulse code telegraphic message by Morse code. In a Morse code, what do you do? In USA, there will be a small device where you press and release, press and release. When you press it, a circuit will be closed. When a circuit is closed, current will flow. The current will flow for some time, that will be a small line. Then release it, nothing. Then press quick tail, then it will be a dot. So, the coded message will be dot and lines, dots and lines. Just make use of this one. You could convey variety of messages from USA to UK, from UK to India. Remember, all this time we were requiring an ordinary electrical wire, because all the communication were by electrical current. We employed electrical field and magnetic field and mechanical field, that is all, only these three. That was a very primitive technique by which communication could be sent from UK to India, USA to any part of the world. That was a story about 100 years ago. Next step, convert electrical signal into electromagnetic signal. The advantage of electromagnetic signal is this is very fast and it can be communicated in the open air. That is how Marconi's radio became very important. At that time, the messages were done only modulation on sound. So, the radio, a modulated electromagnetic wave is the radio, that is all. There are two types of modulation, amplitude modulation and frequency modulation. Let us first understand this one, then only you would be able to appreciate the big quantum jumps that we have done in laser communication. So, let me explain this. At the time when Marconi started with the radio, and after 50 years when there was no TV, imagine about 50 years ago in India there was no TV, but we had radio, broadcast radio, and we have telephone connection in the house, only these two were there. Telegraphic message was also possible, but it was possible only in certain telegraphic office. So, there were only 3 communication which I know when I was a small boy, school boy. A communication through telegram, which will be usually a bad news. When somebody brings a telegram, they know people will usually start crying, because only a very bad news will be given by telegram, because it comes from any distance. You can do this one, unless until it important, nobody sent telegram, and at that time no telephone also. So, the communication between 2 places, 2 villages, 2 towns were all very, very rare. What was possible is radio. In radio, it is not an one-to-one contact communication, it is a broadcast. What do you mean by broadcast? What is the difference between telephone communication and broadcast? You can immediately understand. Broadcast means in a radio, certain music, certain message, certain report is spread out throughout. Anybody who has got a radio and anybody who has gone to tune to that particular frequency will catch up that audio message, and he can listen to music, he can listen to the report. This was the story for about 30-40 years in India, for example, till I would say 1960 or 70. Then after some time, technology improved, television also came in. In the television, you have a video image also. That is, a certain image could be broadcast, then against a broadcast. What I am saying is, there is no communication between one person to another person. That was impossible. Only broadcast. So, television broadcast means you have video message plus audio message. That was the second step, second generation telecommunication. At that time also, house to house telephone was not so important, not so familiar. Only about 20-30 years ago, house to house, which I mean house to house means between 2 persons, direct point to point contact was possible only about 20-30 years ago. Okay. In these kind of techniques, only 2 kinds of modulation were employed. One is amplitude modulation, the other is frequency modulation. We are not going to phase modulation and pulse code modulation, not yet. These were not employed for a long time. So, at the beginning we were using amplitude modulation and frequency modulation, and they are being used even now. That is the reason why I am bringing back to you. If you just switch on your radio in your mobile or in your car, you will easily get AM, which is about 20 kilohertz, I think so, 720 kilohertz. FM also is there, I think 101, 102 like that, I do not remember the frequency. These AMs will be usually in kilohertz, FM will be in few megahertz frequencies. Anyway, what is important is this one. For audio wave, the range is about 530 to 2700 kilohertz is the typical frequency of the electromagnetic wave, which is the messenger wave, which is the postman, or it can be converted into pulse modulation, pulse code modulation, which means about 1200 bits per second. What it means is an amplitude modulation, a continuous variation in the electromagnetic wave intensity is converted into bits, into small countable number of bits. How you do that? You can see this later. Next one is the frequency modulation. This has another range which will be of the order of few megahertz, 108.1 megahertz. That is another range. Or in terms of bits, it is about 2400 bits per second. These are the most common techniques employed for a broadcast for a very long time in radio wave and in television also. How it is done, what is the principle I can show, and it is very, very important. The top one is a modulating signal. Modulating signal is my voice. Forget about the video part, let me make whole thing simple. My voice will be reachable to your ears only when the frequency of my voice is from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz, not beyond. I repeat, if my voice has certain frequency, if the voice frequency is from 20 to 20,000 hertz, that is all the audible range. Let me imagine that I speak certain things, certain nonsense or in certain sense with this frequency anywhere from 20 to 20,000, that is a frequency, but that is not the amplitude. Amplitude is the rise and lowering of strength of the voice. The frequency is how repeatedly the waves go on back and forth. You know, if you have studied elementary physics, you know amplitude is different from frequency. Now, let us imagine my voice is something like the top level modulating signal, and then we put a carrier wave. The carrier wave, you see, it has certain well defined frequency. When we say amplitude modulation, what we do, my voice will modulate the amplitude of the carrier, and what you see on the green is an amplitude modulated carrier signal. You can see wherever my voice is high, the amplitude is very big. The green, look at the green part, amplitude is very big. When my voice is low, it has come down to almost 0, it has narrowed down. Then when I raise my voice, it goes. So, the amplitude goes up, comes down, goes up, like that. So, it is amplitude modulated carrier wave. Another one is a frequency modulated carrier wave. What is this? Look at this one. The first one, the green one, the frequency of the carrier wave is not changed, only the amplitude is changed. In the second one, the frequency modulated wave, it is the frequency of the carrier wave is changed, not the amplitude. For example, it is in the blue violet one. In the violet, you will see when my voice is very high, the frequencies get closer. When the closer, it means frequency is high. So, when the frequency is high, that represents my voice is high. When the frequency is shallow, you can see that one. When the frequency is not so high, my voice has come down. Again, I raise my voice. When I raise my voice, frequency come closer. So, I change the frequency of the carrier without changing the amplitude. So, these are two distinct differences in broadcasting or communication, point to point communication also. Now, what is important is each one has certain advantage, disadvantage. We are not interested. What is important for right now is these days we still have amplitude modulation for a short distance. For a short distance, it is the frequency modulation would be very good, very effective. That is why if you look at most of the commercial, yes, most of the commercials are FM wave, they would be able to reach the people only. For example, a station in Chennai would be able to cover up only the people in and around Chennai, not the people in far away Madurai. It may not be possible. On the other hand, the amplitude modulated wave can go for a long distance. There are so many advantages. What is another important advantage, disadvantage is the frequency modulated wave will have very good fidelity. It will be very reliable, whereas AM will carry some kind of noises, distortion, etc. The voice will not be as original as that other frequency modulated way. There are so many other differences, we will not go into that one. What these are meant for mostly radio broadcasting and communication, point to point communication. Next we go to the next step. This was the story for about 100 years. Remember, for about 100 years we were stuck only in these two types of electromagnetic communication. Then people thought about pulse code modulation, where you digitalize every signal, and from then on we entered into a totally new world which is called the digital world. How do we do that? You can take a look at it. You can take a look at it. The top one is a wave which represents my voice. Then somewhere in the middle you see my voice is very high. At that time I do digitalization. When I do digitalization, I can convert into a signal of 1 0 1 0 1 1 0 1 0 1 1 1, then 0 0 0. I can convert in the way I like it. That kind of coding has been done at the bottom. You see that my voice is now converted into a certain quantized signal of 1 0 1 gap, 1 0 0 gap, 1 1 1 gap. Then I have another one. There is a long pass, 0 1 1, 0 0 1. What I mean to say, I can code the way I like it. There are so many methods of coding it. Just I have given for one example at the top. There is another example at the bottom. Now, whichever way, only importance is I should know what is the methodical way which I follow for coding it, and then this must be communicated to the other end for decoding also. That is, other end, whoever is going to receive this signal should know how to get rid of this decoding and get back my message. Okay, this is the typical examples of converting an analog signal into a digital signal. Now, that is all important. Now, let us go to the next step, where we will be employing different types of waves, low frequency radio wave, high frequency wave, microwave, and after microwave we will be slowly drifting into infrared wave and electromagnetic wave of different frequencies, and in this case a variety of electromagnetic waves would be employed for different purposes. Each has certain advantage and disadvantage. Eventually we will be pushed towards a domain where light should be the best messenger. Why light should be a best messenger? People know that light would be a best messenger, but they did not know at that time technology was not so much aware how to make use of light as a carrier of message, and that is what happened about 50 years ago. Right now, light acting as a message carrier and optical fiber carrying the light wave or taking the message has become a way of life now, and that is how we have moved on from 1G, first generation telecommunication, to second generation telecommunication, then third generation telecommunication, fourth generation telecommunication. Now India has joined the club of 5G communication. the details of which we will see in the next subsequent lecture. Thank you very much.